Alrighty, guys, if you're looking for a gaming laptop with the absolute best performance, well, we have two machines that we're going to unbox today that you can choose from.
True.
One is a little bit sexier, dare I say, than the other.
That's that's one way to put it. Yes. So one of the most common questions that I see asked in like the Discord and in the chats on the stream and stuff is people just asking, "What's the best gaming laptop from ROG?" Which, as we always say, there's no one answer to that because the
Right.
answer depends on you. It's what is the best gaming laptop for me, and then we need more information about what it is you need. When people ask that question, though, a lot of times what they mean is what laptop from ROG has the absolute best gaming performance? And the answer to that is clear. It is the ROG Strix Scar, and that is what we're going to be showing off today alongside its sibling, the ROG Strix G16. So let's get straight to it. Let's start opening this thing up, and I will talk a little bit about the specs of this machine.
And full disclosure, I already unboxed this because we wanted to make sure we had it all set up on Windows so we can show off some other things. But
Charged and stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
When you and I love the unboxing experience of the thing lifts up as you open it up. So the Strix Scar is our highest performing gaming laptop. This model comes with up to an Intel Core Ultra 9 275HX and up to an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5090 laptop GPU. Ooh, neat. You can get it with up to 32 gigs of DDR 5600 RAM and 2 terabytes of storage, but both of those are upgradable. I'm already seeing questions in chat about whether there is a 64 gig version. As far as I know, there are no SKUs that come with 64 gigs baked in, but if you need 64 gigs, you can open up the machine and pop in up to 64 gigs of RAM. And we're actually going to talk a little bit more about that later. You also get on the side, you've got some ports. You've got one HDMI 2.1 FRL port. You've got 3 USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, 2 Thunderbolt 5 ports that use USB Type-C. They support DisplayPort, power delivery, and G-Sync. And then, of course, because this is the Strix, you get Ethernet there. Not always a given on a lot of laptops these days. And a headphone jack. And if you cannot wire it up with Ethernet, this machine has Wi-Fi 7 as well as Bluetooth 5.4. So it features all the latest wireless standards. Now, you can tell by the design here that this machine is an RGB lover's dream. That is kind of the defining characteristic of Strix. It's a little bit bigger than our Zephyrus machines, comes in both 16 and 18-inch sizes as well. So if you want a really big screen, there is an 18-inch version. Jake has the 16-inch version here. On the bottom of, so this year is a completely new design, right? New chassis design, more sleek than ever, while still retaining like all of that Strix flair. You can see that it's got that full surround RGB light bar on the bottom. That is the first time we've done one that surrounds the entire bottom of the chassis and gives it that glow off your desk, almost like it's levitating. Super cool.
it's gorgeous.
You
It
also
looks so
get,
good
yeah,
in person.
it does. And I was going to say a video doesn't do it justice, but your desk is actually doing a pretty good job of reflecting it. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
You've got per key RGB on the keyboard. You've got an RGB ROG logo on the back there. So lots of really custom RGB. You can adjust that in Armory Crate. Use Aura Creator to create your own custom animations, things like that. But what you'll also see is that this machine, for the first time, has our iconic Anime Vision display. Originally pioneered on our Zephyrus machines, we've removed it from Zephyrus after we released the new
And
design
brought
for
it
those
here.
machines. And now it is on the Strix. And I got to say, at first, I was like a little confused about that. After seeing it in person, I'm like, actually, this makes way more sense on Strix. It fits in so perfectly because the Strix has a little bit of that kind of louder design language, right?
Right.
A little bit more kind of in your face gamery. And so the Anime Vision fits perfectly with it. John, so it's a 16-inch machine, so there isn't a ton of room for a number pad there. That's the reason that we have included the number pad on the touchpad. If you press that little numlock icon on the touchpad, you'll get a little light up number pad on the touchpad, and you can use that. If you need a numpad, I would look at the 18-inch version of the Strix Scar or Strix G. Those ones have a full numpad on the keyboard. And there is the Anime Vision. Very at home on these Strix machines. Now, this is customizable. You can go in there and choose a few different animations. You can draw your own animations, import a GIF, and make your own animations from that. Super, super cool. That's thousands of little precision drilled holes in there with LEDs under them. So it looks really, really cool in person. Um, I love this on Strix and I hope it sticks around. Unlike Zephyrus, it's not a whole, the old Zephyrus machines, it's not a whole like triangle. It's more of a slash, but still very,
I'm
very
kind of glad they
cool.
did that. I don't know. It just kind of feels right. And you got this and
It
the
fits.
balance of this, the negative space all
Yep.
really feels nice. And like we said, we've got that full RGB on the bottom with all of that. There's a lot of flair going on with this machine.
100% agree. I mentioned that this has perky RGB as well. The Strix G, which we'll look at in a moment, has some models have perky, some models have 4-zone. It depends on the SKU, but the Strix Scar, this is our highest end model. So it comes with all of the bells and whistles. We talked a little bit about the keyboard and trackpad there, the number pad on there. You can peel that sticker off now if you want.
I just did.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that is the number pad. So you guys can see there's the little light up number pad that you
Yep.
can use if you, and then you, yeah, just press that num lock to turn it off. So there you go. So John in chat is asking any OLED options. No. So instead of OLED on the Strix Scar, we have actually gone for mini LED instead. OLED and mini LED are kind of two sides of a similar coin. They both provide similar advantages overall, but they have their own little differences. So this features our Nebula HDR display, which we have improved again this year. It's a 2.5K mini LED panel, now capable of 1200 nits of peak brightness, which is a lot higher than you're going to see on a lot of OLED laptops. So you're going to get more of that highlight detail and HDR and stuff like that. You're still going to get really good black levels because it has over 2000 individual dimming zones. And then, of course, it's got a 240 hertz refresh rate as well for super smooth play. So the HDR on this display looks incredible. Can highly, highly recommend it. Can attest to it myself. I have watched plenty of movies on this display, and it looks great. So if you want OLED, our Zephyrus machines do have that. I really like the mini LED on this, though. Again, the OLED has the per pixel dimming, but slightly less brightness. This has more brightness. And with 2000 zones, honestly, I rarely, if ever, noticed blooming on this panel because it has so many zones and because it has a really good algorithm driving those zones that our team has spent quite a few years working on. So I do really recommend the mini LED on the Strix Scar machine. Now, again, the Strix G, which we'll show in a little bit, has a standard Nebula display, not the Nebula HDR. So it doesn't have the mini LED with all that local dimming, but it still has the high resolution and refresh rate. It has 100% coverage of the DCI P3 color space, so you get those really vibrant colors and so on. Here's what's cool. Both of our all of our Strix machines this year have displays that have been updated to include a new ambient contrast ratio filter on top. Jake, I realized you actually weren't in Taiwan with us when we saw this demo.
Correct.
This was really cool. So the goal of this is that it reduces glare to improve the contrast, and then there's another film that improves the viewing angle. So when we were in Taiwan looking at the pre-production versions of these machines last year, they took us into a room and they showed us two Strix displays side by side. Didn't tell us the difference between them, and they asked if we could tell which was the newer one. And all three of us almost immediately picked out the new display with the ambient contrast ratio film because it just pops a little bit more. It's not like the difference between a regular LED and an OLED or a regular LED and a mini LED. You just get a little bit of extra pop because it's cutting down on that glare from the ambient light in the room. The blacks look a little bit darker. The image is just a little bit punchier. Now, the light doesn't have to be shining on directly on it either. Like, obviously, anti-glare films, if you have a light shining directly on your screen, it's going to help scatter that light. But even if you don't have a direct like lamp behind you shining on it, it's still going to look a little bit punchier just by cutting down the glare from the light around you. So it is a really, really cool improvement for, again, not just the Strix Scar, but the Strix G models as well, that I thought was pretty neat. And then again, it also has a film on there that helps improve the viewing angle of the display. Not something that you always need for a laptop since you're usually sitting right in front of it, but if you're looking at it kind of at a funny angle because you're using it like standing up or something, or if, you know, like when I was in college, we used to sit around and watch movies on each other's laptops.
Yeah, sharing watching
You know,
a
like,
flight with your partner on an airplane or something.
yeah.
Like,
situations like that, when you're looking at it a little bit off axis, it's going to look a lot better because of that ACR filter on it. So that's a really nice advantage of these new machines as well. You may have noticed, as Jake has been moving this around, that the vents are also laid out a little bit differently on this newly redesigned chassis. So on the back, we kept that full width rear exhaust vent for this new design, the same as last year or similar to last year. But we intake air a little bit differently on these machines. So we intake air through the bottom. You saw all of those vents on the bottom when he put the laptop up. Here, he'll show you again. So there's the bottom. You're going to get intake through there. And then, Jake, if you can turn it to the sides, this is kind of cool. You'll notice some differences on the sides. There are some small vents underneath the I/O kind of, but there aren't big vents on the side like previous models. That gives us more room for I/O on the sides for all of those ports, and lets us push them to the back of the chassis a little bit so they're not like in the way of your mousing hand, things like that. So we're intaking air through the bottom, through a little bit the sides, and then through the keyboard as well, and then exhausting it all out the back. This has worked really well, and we actually use this new kind of sandwiched heatsink design with the vapor chamber that also helps improve thermals on these machines. Now, here's something really cool. In order to do that, we have to keep this. I'm gonna kind of show it on my old model here. This like kind of forehead thing on the back. That is what houses a lot of that thermal module, and so that's necessary. But if you look at Jake's machine, you may also be able to show these side by side, Jake. They have reduced this gap between the lid and the back by a huge amount. And when they first showed this to us, they were like, "Oh yeah, we reduced the seam between these two. We thought that was kind of cool." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! That's actually my favorite part of the design. Like, it makes the whole thing look so much sleeker and so much more like it's all one unit. And then when you open it up, we use this gull wing hinge design similar to the previous model, but it just fits in even better with this model, where when you open it up, instead of like the laptop opening up and it still has this thing on the back, it kind of opens up like this.
This is the old.
And yeah, it's the same. This part is the same on both models, although it still looks a little bit better on the new model.
I think it looks cleaner in the new model.
You don't have a huge thing hanging off the back because the display kind of moves back as it opens up, and it just looks like one cohesive unit while still giving us the benefits of having that enlarged space on the back for the thermal module.
Big upgrade.
The design this year, yeah, it's awesome. So we get a little bit more flexibility with the ports. We still get really good cooling for if you want to put that, get the model with the 5090 in there. Obviously, that's really important. Very cool. Now, all of that alone would make this one of the best machines we've ever made. But there is one big fat cherry on the top of this package, and frankly, it might be one of the things that I am most excited about. This year, our team designed the world's first toolless upgrade access on a gaming laptop. Now, the Strix line has always had upgradable RAM and storage. That's nothing new. But this year, our team made it way easier to get inside your machine. There are no screws, no screwdrivers, no guitar picks or anything like that necessary. Jake, show them how easy it is to do.
Right. So this is
the easiest to lay it flat.
Yeah, this is the bottom of the machine, right? It looks like you'd expect the bottom of a laptop to look. But there's this one little part in the center. You slide it over, and then you can see that red spot right there is an arrow pointing down. Once you see that arrow, you pull down, and just like that.
It's you gotta if you grab it from the top, it should open up really easily.
Yeah.
It's maybe a little bit hard the way you're reaching around your
because I'm like in an awkward space. It's actually really easy to do, but
it is so easy. In fact, it is easier to upgrade the RAM and storage on this laptop than it is to change the batteries in my kid's like lightsaber toy. Like it's crazy how quickly that lid just comes right off. Yeah. And then inside we've got, I would lay this on the table so we can
I'm going to do this one more time though, actually, because
okay, fair.
And showing it going back on is easy too, right? There's all these little hooks right on top. You slide it in, right? That didn't take much finesse at all. Put it in, they push it up, and it locks back into place. So that thing is now back in the correct position. Again, over, down, then up. I just wasn't able to get my
There
thumb in
you
there.
go.
It was just, yeah, it was unlocked, but I just wasn't able to get my finger in very well to pull up this
But I think
tray.
this is also important to point out that it's not going to accidentally come off,
That
right?
is a
Like
big
you
deal.
saw that, like you're not going to accidentally hit it, and the thing's going to pop off, and your RAM and SSDs are going to be like flying all over the place, right? Like it's on
That would
very
be
securely.
Yeah, that
But
would be
it's
bad.
really easy to flip it, slide it down, and then pop it off. I
And-
am so proud of this design, like our design team for coming up with this. And then when you look in here, you've got that vapor chamber, you've got this kind of panel covering the motherboard. So if you're like one of those people that's never opened a laptop before and you're a little bit nervous about getting in there to upgrade it, you don't need to be. Everything is covered. Your SSD and RAM are right there, easily accessible. You can't accidentally like touch some other like capacitor on the motherboard and knock it or break it. Like that stuff is just so easily accessible there. You don't even need any screws to undo the SSD. The SSDs use our M.2 Q latch that we originally pioneered on our motherboards, where you just undo this little circular latch. It may be kind of hard to show because it's small, but you just undo this little latch, the SSD pops right out. Zero tools necessary for all of this. Same with the RAM, you can just pinch it and pop it out. So people who were asking about a 64 gig model, you can easily pop out those RAM sticks, 2 RAM sticks in there. You can put in 64 gigs yourself. And by the way, like to the people who want to get in deeper and tinker with like the motherboard or whatever, that cover over the top, you can unscrew that normally and you can get in if you wanted to like do some crazy stuff with it. I wouldn't recommend that most people do that, right? But it's still accessible for you if you wanted to. We're not trying to limit what you can do with it. We're just trying to make it easier than ever for people to do the basic stuff that 90% of people are going to do who upgrade their laptop: SSD and RAM upgrades. So I am blown away by this. I spent all of CES just like opening it and closing it and opening it and closing it because I was like so blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So yeah, that to me, that's like what sold me on this machine. As if I wasn't already sold. I was like, this is the best thing we've ever done. So that is the Strix Scar. We do have another machine here that Jake's going to pull out. I don't think I think he's already unboxed it.
I did.
But we have the Strix G16 as well. And I want to talk a little bit about the differences between these two. You'll notice here that there's no enemy vision. You get that cool kind of little slash on the back. The logo is not. Oh, it is RGB.
It is RGB.
Well, there you go. So the gray model, the gray Strix G16 does not have an RGB logo. It's just a gray logo. But really cool thing about all of these machines, the Strix Scar as well. If you don't want all of the RGB, right? Like if you're in an office setting and you don't want that kind of like loud RGB look, you can put it into stealth mode. All the RGB will turn off. And that ROG logo on the back is actually like a polished metal finish. So when you turn off the RGB, it doesn't look like this like matte plastic light that's turned off. It looks like just this etched logo that's supposed to be there. It looks really premium.
Yeah.
And what's cool about this is specific to just the Volt Green G16. You'll notice that it has this infinity mirror effect. I don't know if you can pull it toward the camera and see it. This is only on the Strix G16 and only on this Volt Green model. Yeah, look at that. That's so cool. That's actually, it's the RGB is around the edges of the logo, and then it has this like infinity mirror effect that like is going into. It's so freaking awesome. I love that they did this. And then it's of course got that green accent on the edge as well.
You want to see the G16's box? I mean, yeah, it's right here.
It probably looks very similar.
It's brown instead of gray. So there's
Oh
that.
no, yeah, okay. That's a similar box to last year. Yeah. No, that one's really cool.
Yeah. So it's.
Is there a keyboard shortcut to toggle the RGB on the logo? Not one that out of the box is like built in, I don't think, but you may be able to set that up as a macro in Armory Crate. That's what I would look into that.
Yeah, I think that would be possible. Okay.
So the Strix G16 and Scar 16, as you're going to see here, they look really similar, other than the a little bit less RGB on the G16, depending on which model you buy. Some of the models are per key, or are 4-zone on the keyboard instead of per key, et cetera, et cetera. there are otherwise they look incredibly similar. Same chassis design, same toolless upgrades. The displays, like I mentioned, are a little bit different. You have the mini LED on the Scar, the regular Nebula display on the G16. We have an article which you can find in the description of this video, and also we have a little table that, Jake, if you want to pull that up, just to really clearly show the differences between the Strix Scar and the Strix G models. There it is. So both the Strix Scar and the Strix G with the Intel processors have up to that same Core Ultra 9 processor, 275HX. They have the same updated design. One is Nebula HDR, one is Nebula. The other difference is that the Scar goes up to a 5090 and the Strix G16 and G18 go up to a 5080. So if you want that 5090, you have to get the Scar. That is our most premium model. But the G tends to have a wider variety of SKUs, especially like, right now we just have the 5080, the 5070, 5070 Ti. Historically, right, as NVIDIA has gone down the stack and released like the 60 and 50 tier GPUs, those tend to come to the G and not the Scar. The Scar is just that really high-end SKU or SKUs, and then the G is this wider range of stuff from, like we had the 3050 all the way up to the 3080. So you can see how that tends to work with this model. We'll see if and when NVIDIA releases more GPUs, but that's kind of how that works. Both have the toolless upgrades, both have the full surround RGBs. You'll also see the AMD Strix models here. We don't have one of these to unbox. It's the same or very similar design to last year. It has a couple like slightly different flourishes on it and stuff. That's going to contain up to an AMD Ryzen 9 9995 HX 3D on the G16, or just the regular HX on the G18, and then has a 5070 Ti on the top end of the G16 and 5070 on the top of the G18. So, I know I am already seeing questions about this in chat. We talked a little bit about this in our CES Q&A, so I'll direct you there. If you're asking about a higher end model of the AMD Strix machines, we don't have anything announced for that at the moment. Doesn't mean it's out of the question forever, but it really depends on what our product team decides to do, but also what the demand from retailers and local offices is, right? Because if retailers aren't demanding that SKU, then we don't really have anywhere to sell them. So like it's a little bit more complex there than just like, hey, why didn't you put this AMD processor with this GPU? Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. So you can go check out our CES Q&A to kind of learn more about the kinds of things that lead to those decisions. So, okay. And of course, all of these machines come with 3 months of PC Game Pass, like most of our other devices.
Yeah.
And many of these devices also come with a key for the new Monster Hunter game, if that is something that you are looking at. So I would check that out as well.
Fun game.
Both of these all of these laptops should be hitting store shelves in the coming weeks. We mentioned this before we started our main topic. I know some of you already got your pre-orders in. You may see that estimated shipping date fluctuate a little bit as we get components from our suppliers and get units out to retailers and things like that. That sometimes that release date is a little bit of a moving target because there are so many companies involved. Like we got to get chips, we got to get the display panels and all that stuff. So sometimes things change as we get closer to launch, but rest assured they are coming soon. Price will vary based on SKU. You can check out the prices in your region by checking your local retailers. If you want to see these laptops in action, keep it tuned here to the ROG Twitch and YouTube channels. Jake streams games on Tuesdays and Fridays here using ROG gear. We can't stream with these samples since they're still pre-production, but when the final units come out and we get our hands on some, I am sure Jake will be streaming some games on the ROG Strix Scar. And of course, guys, you can always tune into this show, ROG Pulse, every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, this isn't the full show. We actually cut the video down just to include our main topics, so you aren't scrubbing through an hour-long stream. But if you watch it live, we're here for like an hour. There's so much more. We talk about games. We give stuff away. You can get points to your ROG Elite account most weeks. So much more. So join us live to see the full stream. Check out our Discord to connect with the community and stay up to date with all of our latest news and announcements.